Ladies and gentlemen, brother and sister Toady I, speech this many people chase after moments of excitement, bursts of inspiration, waiting for that perfect wave of motivation to move forward. But motivation, my friend, is like fire on paper, bright, warm, but gone in seconds. You cannot build a life, a dream, or a destiny on what is temporary. Greatness is not birthed in moments of hype, but in the quiet discipline of daily decisions. You must learn to trade the thrill of the moment for the grind of consistency. When a person lives by motivation alone, their success is dictated by mood. They work when they feel like it. They pray when they're inspired. They dream big but act small. However, consistency is not about how you feel. It is a commitment to purpose, whether you are celebrated or invisible, excited or exhausted. It is the quiet agreement between your vision and your actions. Motivation shouts, but consistency whispers. And yet, it is that whisper that builds empires. We live in a culture that glorifies the highlight reel. Social media shows the end result, the trophies, the applause, but it hides the early mornings, the rejections, the long nights, and the sacrifices. The truth is, the process is not glamorous, but it is sacred. Consistency gives value to the process. Every small act of obedience to your vision adds up. It compounds, even when no one sees it, especially when no one sees it. The harvest you seek depends on the seeds you plant when no one is watching. Discipline is not punishment, it is training. You are not being deprived, you are being developed. Motivation may get you started, but discipline keeps you going. You don't need more motivation, you need systems, habits, patterns. When you brush your teeth every day, you don't wait to feel inspired. You do it because it's necessary. Apply that same logic to your purpose. Train your body, your mind, and your emotions to serve your future, not your feelings. Too many people are waiting for the perfect moment, the right mood, or that magical spark of motivation before they begin. They tell themselves, when I feel ready, I'll start. When I'm inspired, I'll move. But the truth is, life does not reward those who wait on feelings. Life rewards those who act on principle. Feelings are fragile. They shift with the weather, change with the seasons, and disappear when pressure rises. If you build your life on motivation, you will always need another push, another speech, another reason to get back up. But if you build on discipline, on consistency, you will move forward whether you feel like it or not. You see, motivation is like a matchstick. It flares up quickly but dies just as fast. It gives you a moment of heat, but it cannot warm a house. It cannot cook a meal. It cannot light the journey of purpose. That's why people start new habits, new dreams, new commitments with excitement, and 2 weeks later they quit. They say the spark is gone. But it's not the spark that sustains a vision, it's the structure built by daily, intentional, sometimes even boring steps. That's the secret nobody likes to talk about. Success is not sexy. It's not always exciting. It's often lonely, repetitive, and uncomfortable. But it works. Consistency does not require hype. It requires heart. You don't need to feel powerful to do what's right. You don't need to be in the mood to honor your calling. The world teaches us to chase pleasure, but purpose demands persistence. Anyone can show up once. Anyone can be excellent for a day. But greatness belongs to those who show up again and again and again, without applause, without reward, without anyone watching. They show up because their future is too important to leave in the hands of their emotions. A tree does not grow because the sun feels good today. It grows because its roots are deep, its rhythm is strong, and its commitment to rise never wavers. So why do we expect our lives to flourish with scattered effort? You cannot plant a seed and dig it up every week to check on it. Growth requires consistency. You water it even when you see no leaves. You nurture it even when there is no fruit. You believe in it because you know what's hidden beneath the soil is more powerful than what's seen on the surface. That's how your dreams work. That's how your purpose grows. You keep watering, keep working, keep walking, because you trust the process more than your feelings. What separates those who rise from those who fall isn't passion, it's perseverance. It's what you do after the fire fades. When the excitement dies, the real test begins. Can you be faithful in the dark? Can you keep your word when it's no longer convenient? Can you remain steady when your emotions are shouting for you to quit? The answer to these questions determines your future. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is godly. It is not loud, but it is lasting. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you are training your character to carry your calling. You don't need a motivational quote every morning. What you need is a reason that's deeper than your mood, a why that's rooted in your identity, your values, and your vision. Ask yourself, who are you becoming every day? Not occasionally, not on good days, every day, because your future is shaped not by what you say you want, but by what you repeatedly do. The gym you go to once doesn't shape your body. The book you read once doesn't sharpen your mind. The prayer you pray once doesn't strengthen your spirit. It's the repetition, it's the rhythm, that is where transformation lives. Consistency turns ordinary habits into extraordinary impact. When you rise early every morning to sharpen your mind, it may not feel like much, but over time you will carry wisdom that others admire. When you give your best at work, even when no one's watching, you build trust that others can't buy. When you choose to love with patience, serve with joy, and lead with integrity, daily faithfully, you create a legacy that outlives you. And that, my friend, is what this world truly needs. Not more people chasing motivation, but people who master consistency. The dream you carry is sacred. Don't insult it with sporadic effort. Don't reduce your calling to moments of hype. Discipline yourself to be consistent, not perfect, but present. Show up again and again. When you're tired, when you're uncertain, when you're not in the mood, especially then, because your destiny doesn't care about your feelings. It responds to your faithfulness. And when you choose consistency over comfort, purpose over pressure, and discipline over emotion, you don't just change your life, you change generations. Many people treat motivation like a sparkler on a holiday night, bright, noisy, thrilling, yet ash-cold moments later. They wait for that spark to dance before they write, study, pray, craft, or create, never realizing that the spark is not the source of warmth. The slow, steady embers are. The first keynote, then, is that consistency is the silent architect of every lasting achievement. It does its work in the dark, hammering beams of habit into place when applause is absent and moods are low. Motivation may lift you to the starting line, but only consistency moves the earth beneath your feet, inch by inch, toward the finish. A farmer does not whistle only on sunny mornings. He tills through drizzle and wind because the harvest depends on rhythm, not romance. When you learn to act on principle rather than impulse, your schedule becomes a covenant and your daily tasks a liturgy that honors the future you intend to inhabit. Yet consistency without direction is no better than a ship's anchor dropped in the sand. It holds you in place, but never takes you home. That is why the second keynote insists on deliberate systems, patterns that convert disciplined action into predictable progress. A musician tunes her instrument before every concert, not when inspiration strikes. A pilot checks the same gauges on each flight, whether crossing oceans or county lines. Systems transform duty into cadence, turning scattered effort into compounded strength. They reduce the friction of choice. So excellence is not a heroic act of willpower, but a natural step on a well-marked path. Build morning rituals that sharpen your mind before dawn argues with you. Set timers that escort distractions out of the room. Design accountability that makes quitting more painful than pressing on. A life organized around systems frees the mind for creativity because the mechanics of progress are on autopilot. Do not misread the quiet nature of these two notes. Consistency is not glamorous, and systems rarely trend on social feeds, but together they forge reputations that outlive hashtags. Too often people sprint in circles, fueled by temporary excitement, announcing goals they will later abandon. They confuse loud beginnings with steady building. The bricklayer who returns to the wall day after day, placing stone on stone with unhurried attention, will raise a fortress while the crowd still debates the blueprint. Celebrate the uneventful repetitions, for they are the true miracles. The keyboard tapped before dawn, the chapter reread for clarity, the ledger balanced when no auditor is near. These moments feel unremarkable until they accumulate, and then everyone calls them genius. Understand, too, that feelings are terrible leaders. They love comfort, hate resistance, and change costumes daily. When you grant them authority over your schedule, they will cancel practice because the pillow is soft, skip study because the show is new, postpone prayer because the mood is off. Consistency dethrones feelings and enthrones purpose. Systems then escort that purpose through every season. Winter's fatigue, summer's distraction, autumn's nostalgia. Ensuring that progress does not hibernate. Resolve now that your commitment is married to your mission, not your mood. Let feelings ride in the back seat while purpose holds the wheel. Some will say this approach is rigid, but rigidity is the caricature of discipline. True discipline is a framework flexible enough to bend without breaking. Consistency is not about doing the same thing forever. It is about showing up for the same vision while refining methods that serve it better. A vine pruned without fail produces sweeter grapes each year. So your systems adjust as insight grows, but the rhythm of tending never ceases. Stagnation occurs not when routines exist, but when routines stop evolving. Review your habits quarterly, sharpen them, simplify them, then return to the field with renewed clarity. The wonderful irony is that once consistency and systems become muscle memory, they start to generate their own motivation. Success leaves clues on the paths. Small wins, incremental gains, moments of clarity. And those clues spark fresh enthusiasm more potent than any external pep talk. You wake earlier because yesterday's progress whispers, "We are closer than we were." You practice longer because last week's fluency promises greater music tomorrow. The emotional high you once chased now chases you, produced by the compounds of patient obedience. Remember, history does not remember the strength of the initial flame, but the steadiness of the everlasting lamp. Nations, businesses, families, and legacies are sculpted by ordinary actions executed extraordinarily well, day after day. Let these two key notes echo in every corridor of your planning. First, make consistency non-negotiable. Second, install systems that keep consistency alive when your heartbeat is slow and your calendar is crowded. Your destiny is too vast, your calling too critical, to rely on the fickle favor of temporary motivation. Craft your life like a master builder, brick, mortar, and plumb line, and soon others will marvel at the cathedral that rose where only routines once stood. Motivation feels good, but it doesn't last. It is like lightning, bright and electrifying, but gone in a flash. You can't build your purpose on something that fades with your emotions. That's why many start strong and end up discouraged. They make declarations in January, only to retreat in February. They wake up passionate one day and give up the next because they were waiting for a feeling to carry them. But the truth is, your destiny is too important to be dependent on how you feel. Your purpose must be stronger than your mood. If you want to walk in power, you must learn to live by consistency, not by convenience. The first key is to understand that consistency is the engine of transformation. It is not the occasional effort that changes your life, it's the repeated act. A seed planted in the soil doesn't grow because of one watering. It grows because of regular nourishment, even when the surface shows no sign of life. That's what many people miss. They expect immediate results from momentary effort, but real change happens in the shadows of repetition. Great marriages aren't built in anniversaries, but in daily acts of kindness and honesty. Great leaders aren't made in grand speeches, but in everyday integrity. It's what you choose to do day in and day out, even when no one is watching, that determines who you become. The second key is to stop relying on emotional highs and instead build a system that supports your goals. Motivation may get you started, but it's structure that keeps you going. Don't just get inspired, get organized. Create daily disciplines, rituals, and routines that make it easier to do what matters. If you wait to feel inspired to go to the gym, you'll go once a week. But if you build a plan and schedule it into your day, it becomes a rhythm. Excellence doesn't come from impulse, it comes from order. Even the most passionate person will fail without a system to support that passion. Athletes train by schedule, not by feeling. Musicians practice scales before they ever touch a stage. You need systems to protect your purpose from your inconsistencies. The third key is to accept that feelings are unreliable and must never lead your life. There will be days when your energy is low, when your emotions are tired, when your heart feels heavy. And it is in those moments that consistency must take over. You don't show up because you're in the mood. You show up because your future depends on it. The most dangerous lie is the one that says, "I'll do it when I feel like it." That mentality leads to procrastination, to regret, and to mediocrity. Discipline says, "I'll do it whether I feel like it or not." And that kind of discipline creates freedom. When you stop letting your feelings lead and start letting your commitments guide you, your whole life starts to change. Consistency isn't exciting. It doesn't always feel rewarding, but it builds credibility with yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, you are sending a message to your own mind: I can be trusted. And trust is the foundation of self-confidence. People don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lack trust in themselves. And that trust can only come from doing the hard things over and over until they become part of who you are. You don't become a writer by thinking about books. You become a writer by writing every day. You don't become wise by wishing for wisdom. You become wise by learning every day. It's not what you want that defines your life. It's what you're willing to repeat. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life don't come with noise. They come quietly after days and weeks of consistent effort. A tree doesn't grow overnight, but it does grow daily. Just because something isn't visible doesn't mean it's not working. Just because the crowd isn't clapping doesn't mean you're not building something great. Stay faithful in the process. There will be days you want to quit, days you feel behind, days you think it's not working, but keep showing up. Growth is not always loud. Success is not always glamorous. Sometimes the most powerful work is done in silence, and in time, consistency gives birth to results. Results give birth to confidence. Confidence gives birth to momentum. And momentum becomes a force that carries you further than motivation ever could. That's how legacies are built, not with hype, but with habits, not with noise, but with discipline. One day, people will look at your life and call it remarkable. But you will know it was really just one small decision made consistently that led to that moment. So stop chasing motivation. Start building consistency. That's where your power is. That's where your calling comes alive. That's how greatness is born. Many are searching for the next big inspiration, hoping a video, a quote, or a voice will wake them up and push them forward. But the truth is, inspiration is a good visitor but a terrible master. You cannot build your life on what passes quickly. Motivation is like rain, it refreshes for a moment, but if the ground is not prepared, nothing grows. And when the sky dries up, you're left with the same barren soil. That's why the first principle is this: you must stop depending on motivation and start depending on discipline. Discipline is not driven by how you feel, it's driven by what you know is necessary. It doesn't ask for your mood, it asks for your commitment. If you want to become something great, you must choose to act even when you don't feel great. That is the first bridge between where you are and where you're destined to go. The second key is to understand that consistency is not about speed, it's about direction. We live in a world obsessed with fast progress, quick wins, instant success, viral moments. But anything that grows too fast without roots will fall just as fast when pressure comes. Real growth takes time, and time demands consistency. Every single day, your actions are shaping your identity. You don't become a disciplined person because you acted with discipline once. You become disciplined because you chose the same values repeatedly. You don't need to sprint. You need to walk in the same direction every day, step by step, page by page, hour by hour. Consistency builds momentum, and momentum builds identity. And when your identity changes, your future becomes inevitable. The third key is systems. Purpose needs structure. Vision without strategy leads to frustration. People are often inspired by their dreams, but overwhelmed by their lack of direction. That's because they're trying to live from passion instead of principle. You cannot rely on emotion to manage a calling. That's why systems matter. When you build a system, you remove the pressure of motivation and replace it with accountability. A system is a decision made in advance. You already know what time you'll wake up. You already know what matters most. You already know where to put your energy. This is how you protect your progress, by designing a life that doesn't wait for a perfect mood. Excellence is not just about doing your best. It's about designing your best conditions every single day. A strong system will do more for your future than an intense moment of inspiration ever could. The fourth key is emotional maturity. You cannot grow beyond your ability to manage your emotions. The reason many people give up is not because they're incapable, but because they allow temporary feelings to create permanent decisions. Emotions are real, but they are not reliable. They fluctuate, they lie. They will convince you to quit something powerful just because the path feels hard. You must become emotionally mature enough to recognize discomfort as part of growth. Growth will not always feel good. Progress does not come with applause, but emotional maturity allows you to stay committed even when the fire is gone. You can't afford to make your goals subject to how you feel. The person who stays calm, focused, and grounded while everyone else reacts emotionally, that person wins, because emotional maturity leads to consistency, and consistency leads to mastery. When you apply these four principles, discipline over emotion, direction over speed, systems over chaos, and maturity over mood, you begin to live from a different foundation. You don't chase motivation anymore. You don't need to be hyped. You simply become anchored. Anchored people don't drift. They don't panic in storms. They don't retreat just because it's uncomfortable. They know their reason, and their reason is bigger than their resistance. That's the kind of person who builds something lasting. That's the kind of leader who changes lives. That's the kind of life that leaves a legacy. So it may not feel exciting every day. There may be no spotlight, no celebration, no applause. But each time you choose to show up anyway, you are shaping your future in silence. Each time you honor the system, resist the emotion, and walk in the right direction, you're moving closer to the life that others will one day admire. Not because you were always motivated, but because you were always committed. Every person has felt it, that sudden burst of inspiration, that electric moment when everything feels possible. But if you're honest, you've also felt it fade. Motivation may start the journey, but it cannot carry you to the finish line. That's because it was never meant to. It is energy, not structure, wind, not foundation. So the first key is simple but powerful. Consistency must become more important than inspiration. Motivation is a moment. Consistency is a lifestyle. If you wait until you feel like doing something important, you'll keep waiting. Your future is not built on what you feel. It's built on what you repeatedly do. The real difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not talent. It's repetition. But consistency doesn't mean perfection. The second key is to understand that small progress done daily is more powerful than big progress done occasionally. Most people aim to leap when they should focus on walking steadily. A seed doesn't become a tree because it explodes in growth. It becomes a tree because it keeps growing, inch by inch, day after day, through all seasons. That's the way life works. Purpose does not reward the one who moves the fastest. It rewards the one who does not stop. If you can stay faithful in the process, even when results are invisible, you are closer to your breakthrough than you think. Because the power of consistency is that it compounds. Invisible progress becomes visible breakthrough if you don't quit. And that's why the third key is to build discipline, not depend on feelings. Emotions are temporary, but vision is eternal. You cannot live your life by emotion and expect stability. Emotions change with weather, with conflict, with mood, with stress. One day you feel unstoppable, the next you feel unworthy. But purpose is not governed by emotions, it is governed by decision. Discipline is the muscle that makes sure you show up even when you're tired, even when you're uncertain, even when you're discouraged. Every day you act in discipline, you prove that your purpose is bigger than your comfort. And that kind of daily obedience will take you further than 1,000 motivational speeches. But you also need more than discipline. You need a system. This is the fourth key. Many people have passion but no structure. They have energy but no strategy. You cannot achieve consistency without organization. Systems are what keep you on course when you lose focus. A system is a framework that supports your goal even on your worst days. Don't leave your future to chance. Schedule your growth. Design your environment to reduce distractions. Create a rhythm that allows you to protect your priorities. Don't just wake up and hope the day works out. Wake up and already know what you're about to do. When your life is supported by systems, you don't need to rely on motivation anymore. You've created a rhythm that can carry you. And finally, the fifth key. Trust the process, even when it feels slow. So many people give up because they can't see the reward fast enough. They start something new, expect results overnight, and walk away when they feel stuck. But every process worth pursuing will have silence in the middle. The silence is not punishment, it's preparation. Just like a seed in the soil, the most critical part of growth happens beneath the surface. No one sees it, no one applauds it, but it is happening. And if you break the process too early, you forfeit the fruit. You have to be willing to be consistent without validation. Can you be faithful when no one is clapping? Can you work hard when no one is watching? Can you stay committed when nothing looks like it's changing? If you can, you're already winning. Consistency is not about how loud your start is. It's about how long your commitment lasts. It's about showing up when it's boring, showing up when it's hard, showing up when the excitement is gone. And here's the truth. If you do that long enough, one day you'll wake up in the place you dreamed of. Not because you waited for motivation to strike, but because you honored the discipline to keep going. You'll look back not at a few big moments, but at thousands of small choices you made daily, and you'll realize that greatness was never in a moment of inspiration. It was in your refusal to stop. There is a moment in every person's life where they feel the fire, the surge of excitement that makes everything seem possible. But that fire, if not protected, quickly turns to ash. That's because motivation, no matter how powerful, is temporary. It cannot sustain you through the grind of real growth. If your commitment only lasts as long as your excitement, your progress will always be unstable. The first principle you must understand is that consistency is stronger than motivation. It is the daily decision to keep showing up when the feeling is gone, when the applause fades, and when no one is watching. Motivation may get you going, but consistency will keep you growing. The second principle is that small steps every day are more powerful than big leaps once in a while. Our culture celebrates speed, but purpose rewards endurance. You don't need to rush, you need to repeat. The power of consistency lies in the compounding effect of tiny actions. The most successful people are not the ones who sprint every now and then. They are the ones who walk forward every day. They know that every disciplined step, even when small, moves them closer to their destiny. Don't underestimate the strength of a habit. Don't ignore the impact of repetition. It may look simple, but over time it builds something unshakable. The third principle is that discipline must replace emotion. Your emotions will lie to you. They will tell you to stay in bed, to skip your goals, to take shortcuts, to quit. But discipline speaks a different language. It speaks the language of vision. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel, it reminds you of where you're going. It shows up in silence, in routine, in structure. When your day is driven by emotion, you become inconsistent. But when it's driven by discipline, you become dependable, and dependability is the birthplace of excellence. You cannot depend on motivation, but you can always depend on discipline. The fourth principle is the need to build systems that support your goals. Many people fail not because they lack willpower, but because they lack structure. You will never rise above the level of your systems. If your life is chaotic, your results will be too. You need to create an environment where your habits can thrive. Systems remove decision fatigue. They reduce the number of times you have to choose between purpose and comfort, because the plan is already in place. Whether it's a morning routine, a schedule for learning, a process for growth, or a method for staying focused, your systems are the scaffolding that hold up your success. The fifth principle is that emotional maturity is essential to long-term success. Growth doesn't always feel good. The path to greatness is lined with discomfort, doubt, and delay. If you are led by feelings, you will never finish anything that requires sacrifice. Emotional maturity is the ability to stay committed in the face of pressure. It means showing up even when you're frustrated, staying patient when results are delayed, and staying kind when others misunderstand you. It is the strength to keep your focus when the world around you is losing theirs. Emotionally mature people don't chase excitement, they chase excellence, and excellence is born in stability. The sixth principle is to trust the process even when progress is invisible. This is where most people fall off. They think their efforts are wasted because they don't see immediate results. But the most meaningful growth happens in silence. Roots grow before fruit appears. Muscles grow when no one's watching. Wisdom forms in the unseen. You must be willing to keep going even when there is no applause. That is the test of belief. Not whether you start, but whether you stay when it gets quiet. Whether you plant when the ground looks dry. Whether you keep building when the blueprint feels blurry. Trust that consistency is working behind the scenes. If you apply these 6 principles, if you choose consistency over emotion, small daily actions over occasional big effort, discipline over feelings, systems over chaos, emotional maturity over reaction, and trust over impatience, you will become unstoppable. Not because life is easier for you, but because you've become stronger in the process. You will no longer need to wait for the perfect mood. You will wake up with purpose, not pressure. You will act with clarity, not confusion. And one day, the world will call it success, but you'll know it was really just consistency, done with faith day after day. Consistency is the quiet covenant that turns dreams into destinies. Stand firm in what you decide today, and tomorrow will stand firm for you. When motivation fades, let discipline answer. When feelings tremble, let systems steady you. When progress hides, let faith keep digging. Every small unseen act is a seed watered daily. It grows into fruit that nations can eat. Refuse the comfort of quitting. Choose the courage of returning again and again until repetition becomes revelation and practice becomes power. Your legacy will not be measured by moments of hype, but by the relentless heartbeat of perseverance that outlives every storm. Keep showing up, because the day you refuse to stop is the day nothing can stop you.